plays, game-changing plays, and we just didn't see it. And the same goes for offense. Davante Adams, 2 catches today. I mean, so those big-time players did not show up today when you needed them to make plays.
Yeah, Murph, we talked last week about how Davante Adams was so the focus of Derek Carr, and Derek talked about forcing it and doing too much, and now it went the complete opposite, the other way, and that seemed to be strange too. There just seemed to be, again, and I don't understand it, to your point about how the preseason went. Now, these guys didn't start in the preseason or play in the preseason, but with all that has been talked about and all that we have seen from Josh McDaniels and this team, to see them go out and play and still see there's a lot of lack. It seems like a lack of communication, a lack of cohesiveness and consistency. It's really hard to understand, especially you're coming home. You lose that tough game to the Chargers. You don't look great, so you focus on things this week. You get out there. Your offensive line played much better in that first half, no doubt about it. Even with Dylan Parham, the rookie, at center with Andre James out, it's just perplexing to understand. It might take us a few days and watching the game a couple more times, as painful as that could be, to figure out what happened.
Yeah, again, go back to it. Just feels like same old Raider stuff that we've been watching for years, but it doesn't make sense because of all the different changes. For a coaching staff that's being heralded as the kings of adjustments. Gosh, we certainly see him getting out adjusted by the coaching staff from across the field there. So I'm with you. And the breakdown of communications and I'm going to float some out there too.
Uh-oh.
Target. And I think that, we can focus our ire on Derek at times and not look at the broader picture that's going on. But seriously, like at this point now, when do we have to consider all of the things that have gone on? He's the quarterback. He's the leader. He's the one that's responsible for all these things. At what point do we just got to start looking at it and taking a hard look at maybe, I don't want to say he's the problem, but he certainly doesn't seem to be the solution at this point.
Wow. That's strong coming from Murph. And Murph, you know what? And Evan, I'll get your point of view on this too. And it's not just an emotional thing here. I think you look at what happened tonight and you see what happened with Derek Carr in that second half. Yes, play calling, definitely. We talked about that. We think it got way too conservative, but at the same time, there was a lack, I think, of cohesiveness for the quarterback. We saw at the end there, he almost threw a pick in overtime there. And then, of course, Hunter Renfrow with his second fumble in overtime that gets run back for the touchdown as the game winner. We talked a lot about, Mo and I did, Evan, about Josh McDaniels having this team focused and on target, disciplined in that preseason. And Murph is right. It seemed that way. And then last week we saw that go awry. And this, again, it's not all on Derek Carr, but Derek Carr certainly in the second half looked like a different guy than he did in the first half.
Absolutely. You mentioned the lack of discipline, 10 penalties tonight for 68 yards. And, one of the things that I think is an issue right now is what is the identity on offense? I still can't tell what it is that, what is the bread and butter on this team? And you got plenty of pass catchers. You got great weapons. I would have thought that would have been your bread and butter. And you didn't quite see that today. You saw them trying to establish the run game. Josh Jacobs had 19 carries. I thought he ran the ball well tonight. Ran the ball hard, showed some shiftiness and things like that. But I just feel like this team lacks an identity. What is it that they want to do on offense? And, I think more of that responsibility obviously goes on the play caller. And I'm a little underwhelmed right now with Josh McDaniels. I have to say, I know it's a small sample size, 2 games, but I was expecting a lot more from him. You're still seeing issues in the red zone, and that's been an ongoing problem with this team for many years. And it's been an area, and I know last year the Patriots were very good, so I was expecting to see some improvements there. But we're not seeing those things happen quite yet after 2 games.
Murph, yeah, what's your point on that? I mean, we could talk about the players not executing, and certainly in the second half especially, players did not execute. And again, I'm not making excuses, but that defense was on the field a long time, and we had some players who actually played well at times on that defense. But when you look at this overall situation with the coaching, and as we mentioned, Josh McDaniels, I've been underwhelmed because it's been inconsistent. The first half, some of the plays were great. I thought they really used the imagination and the personnel well. They spread the ball out. They did all kinds of things. Evan mentioned the rushing of Josh Jacobs. They even got Zamir White in there. Abdullah got in there with a nice play. So they were using that personnel. And then in the second half, I felt like it was John Gruden in the last 2 minutes of a game that they led by 3 points.
Amen. 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that in even to further that and kind of go to the identity point, is that at least with Gruden, we knew what the identity was. It was that West Coast offense. It was that spread it out so they could get the defenders out to the perimeters and then run the ball. And then, you know what I mean? Like, we knew about all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I'm with you. So to see that, the conservatism that happened there, and then without, seemingly a lack of plan or cohesion, just really weird. And I think that's the stuff that shows up in the red zone. Like, think about how frustrating it was when we had Marcus Mariota on this football team, and we couldn't come up with something creative for him to do in the red zone, even when we had guys like Darren Waller on the team. Like, it was always fascinating to me that there was never more of a plan there. And we even heard Waller make those comments this offseason about how he didn't have, a plan under Gruden's offense in the red zone. Well, here we are again. And like you said, we've got one of the most creative minds there is in modern-day football, and the guy can't come up with something creative to do in the red zone to help us put it in. Again, it goes back to, it's just, I don't understand. I understand these guys are smarter and know a hell of a lot more about football than I do, but the optics of it, why do the optics not change? What the hell is it that we can't get out of our own way? And, because I heard a lot of comparisons to in the first half about what the Raiders were doing to the Cardinals versus what the Chiefs did to the Cardinals last week. And except, in the big but, they were scoring touchdowns. That's the difference. If we'd have punched any of those, you know what I mean? You think about what a different complexion this game has if instead of those field goals, we're punching one or two of those into the end zone.
Well, and that brings up another good point, gents, which is the fact that you have to, what the Chiefs do, and you saw it the other night too, is when they get a lead, they don't get conservative. Andy Reid does the opposite. He keeps going, right? And he keeps going. He pushes on. He runs creative offensive plays to build the lead, not hold a lead. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about the last 5 minutes a game where you got a 14-point lead and you start getting crazy. I'm talking about going into the second half with a 20-point lead, knowing you have a dynamic quarterback. No matter what you think about the Cardinals defense is pretty trash. It's not very good. We had a guest on this week who talked about it. It's a disaster. It's a mess. The fact that the Raiders offense couldn't stay on the field in the second half, I believe, and I might have this wrong, Derek Carr around 30 yards passing in the second half. Okay. You can't have that from your quarterback. You can't have that from your offensive play caller, i.e. the head coach, and expect to win. You just can't do it in the modern NFL. You can't run the ball. They didn't even run the ball effectively in the second half either, even though Josh Jacobs had a nice start. Not his fault, but it's just... It's I can see for a fan it would be infuriating to see your team dominate so completely in one half and then come out in the second half and look like it was Invasion of the Body Snatchers and somebody else is there now.
Yeah, the Raiders had
all these. Oh, sorry, Evan.
Go ahead, Murf. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I'm not mistaken, all of the Arizona DBs, sans one of them, allowed for over 100 passer rating.
Yes.
Every single one of them. And Derek Carr could only move the ball for after, talk about prop bets, Derek Carr's over was 277 yards today. I thought he was going to whiz by that number. Nope, 251 yards. And 30 of them came in the freaking second half. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was bad. Murf, listen, man, we wish we were speaking to you on a better night when the Raiders did more for you as you're traveling, but we certainly appreciate you checking in. We want to let you go before we go to our break and wish you safe travels, my friend. And also, you might want to nurse a nightcap to get over that if you're not driving so it'll make the morning a little better, my friend.
Yeah, we're going to hammer down straight to the bar now. That's certainly for sure. But hey, I appreciate you guys having me. Appreciate you letting me check in. Just truly the voice of the fan today because it's only my voice. And but I'll be checking in with you next week as the Raiders will get a better outcome as they come to Nashville. And I'll be checking in with you live from Nissan Stadium. So look forward to that.
Yes, they'll be in your backyard, and I think you're going to bring them some luck. So So let's hope that happens. All right, Murf, take care. Be well.
All right, see you guys.
All right, there you go. Murf from Raiders Fan Radio with the voice of the fan, which is not a nice voice tonight. It's a very angry voice. Evan, I was shocked at his comments about Derek Carr. I think, though, that even people who really like Derek Carr, you can't avoid that now in 6 of the 8 quarters he's played in this season have not been good.
Yeah, you're gonna start hearing that chatter. Go on Raiders Twitter right now. I haven't checked myself yet, but I guarantee you're starting to hear that chatter. Was Derek Carr, should they have extended him? Should they be paying him all this money? He's not the guy. You're going to start seeing that. Here comes all the divisiveness. It's week 2 and it's already going to begin. I do think he's a big part of the problem, but I think his play caller's got to do a better job at helping him out. I really do. Carr hasn't done, with the turnovers in week 1 and, didn't take command in the second half and make some plays, but I do think the play caller's got to put him in some better spots.
No question. Listen, they're complete team losses, and that goes to the coaching staff too. I can't believe that this team, with the offensive weapons they have, came out in the second half with that game plan. Okay, I don't care how much of a genius Josh McDaniels is. He looked like a kindergartner trying to do trigonometry. He could not figure it out. And as the third quarter moved on, he didn't adjust. Cliff Kingsbury, he doesn't earn a lot of respect as a head coach around the NFL. Let's face it, even amongst Cardinal fans, even though he just got an extension. This guy has only been in pro football for 2 years. Yes, he came from a college program. Okay, so you know how that story goes. Here's Josh McDaniels, Mr. 6 rings. I'm a brilliant offensive mind. Worked for Bill Belichick. Can't figure out the Arizona Cardinals in the second half at home. I don't know how else to say it. It is the most complete failure. I've only covered the Raiders for 5 years. So for those of you who are fans in Raider Nation, I know you've been through a lot more pain than I ever have seen, okay? I get it. But this is incredible. I saw some bad losses with Jack Del Rio. I saw some bad losses under Gruden, of course. But this one, and again, I don't, listen, things can change. There can always be the first time. But again, since the teams expanded to 14 teams in the playoffs in the NFL, an 0-2 team has never made the playoffs. So Josh McDaniels is off to the worst possible start a head coach with the Raiders could have. And there's no candy coating it. If people want to candy coat it, go ahead. It's just not. And on this show, we don't. Mo and I do not candy coat. You guys get mad at us sometimes for that. Somebody was commenting tonight in the first half, you still think the Colts are going to beat the Raiders? Because the Colts went to 0-2 because they look terrible today too. Yes. I mean, they could, right? So I don't get where it went wrong with this offense in the second half. The play calling, you're right. The play of the quarterback, no question. And again, anybody who watches me and this show knows we don't bash Derek Carr. I said he was going to have a great year. So far, I've been completely wrong. He had 2 good quarters so far out of 8. And otherwise, he's looked lost and not really confident in what he's doing. Evan, have you noticed too, I mean, even when he throws ball, he zipped a couple tonight, but when he's going long, he kind of floats them up there. It just seems like a different dude there. And some of it is the play calling. You're right. He's being put into situations apparently that don't work well. And I'm sure that's not great for him. But overall, there just seems something off, and I can't figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. That play in overtime that was almost intercepted, where he threw it down the middle of the field. It looks like some of his mechanics. Now, I'm no quarterback coach or quarterback guru at all, but he seems to be making, like, that throw was off like his back foot, and things like that. Mechanic wise, that can really screw things up. But yeah, I do agree. He looks to be a little bit off. I don't know if it's just not fully comfortable in the system, or, adjusting to, I don't know, having a new receiver like Davante Adams, trying to mix in all the talent he has. I think that could be a problem too, trying to spread the ball out to all these guys. You heard not criticism, but you heard people questioning, did you lock in on Davante Adams too much last week? Now we see this week, he only gives him the ball 2 times. So, I think there's a lot going on in his head right now. And I think he's feeling some pressure with the expectations that come along with having all these weapons and a great play caller, I think he's starting to feel it a little bit.
He does. And I'm going to make an assumption when we come back here. We're going to take a really quick break for those of you listening on the podcast. When we come back, we'll re-pick up the conversation here. We're getting instant reaction. We're talking about the Raiders' epic collapse at home in their home opener. They lose to the Cardinals in overtime on a fumble from Hunter Renfrow, his second in overtime, 29-23. We'll be back. It's Evan Grote of Just Pod Baby. Make sure you subscribe to his podcast as well. And I am Scott Gulbransen. We'll be back right after this. All right, here we are back. Silver and black today, the post-game edition. Your Raiders lose to the Cardinals 29-23 in the most horrific fashion I can remember to date. Sorry to laugh about it. It's just, I'm still, we're on this show to talk, and I'm still kind of speechless. I can't believe what I saw out there with this Raiders team, who now moves to 0-2 as they lose again in overtime, and everybody shares some blame. But Evan, here's what I'm going to pose to you a question. And MM in the YouTube chat mentioned this, so I'm going to shout him out because it's a good question. He's asserting, and we don't know that this is true, but I'm going to bring it up as a what if, and that is, could the chemistry between Carr and McDaniels not be there yet at all? Maybe never. And maybe that's why the structure of Derek Carr's deal is what it is. They can walk away from him at the end of this year, but so far, whatever is happening between play caller and signal caller, it's just not working.
Absolutely. I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, it is still early, only 2 games into this relationship. So, I can't say for certain, but looking back on it, and I know this is kind of in the past, but looking back on it, I think maybe Carr would have benefited from playing a little bit in the preseason. Now I know, the risks.
Back to that.
Yeah, and I know,
okay.
I know the
That's
risk,
okay. It's all right.
But now as we're 2 games into it, and we're seeing that maybe they're not on the same page, the chemistry there, hindsight's 2020, but it is something that has come up in my mind because they do seem to be a little bit off. So I agree with the question, or the person who asked the question. I do believe they're just not on the same page yet.
Yeah, there's no question. And, in the chat, we have going live now, all sorts of, obviously, folks worried about everything, including the coach, including the players. The argument rages on there. So thanks for the chat there. But also, let's talk about the sequence at the end of the game. So the Raiders get the ball after holding the Cardinals in overtime. They hold them on a 4th down. They get the ball back. Derek Carr, they rush the ball a little bit. Then they start passing the ball. Nice pass to Hunter Renfrow. He fumbles the ball. He gets stripped of the ball from behind. And luckily, Foster Moreau recovers it. It's like, whew, that's crazy. Then they get going again, and they're literally within a couple yards of field goal range. And they go in the shotgun and pass the ball. Derek Carr almost throws an interception. I mean, the fact that it was an interception is unreal. It should have been clearly an interception. It was pretty easy if the player from Arizona just paid attention a little more. Then the next play, you get the Renfrow reception. He gets hit and he fumbles again. So again, controlling the ball in overtime, protecting the ball. Now I know he got throttled. He got hit hard and he was down a little bit afterwards. But again, you have to protect the ball. That's what changed the game. Cost you the game because you fumbled the ball, you go the other way. What were they doing in that situation? Why? You ran the ball effectively in the first half, not so much in the second.
Yep.
But why would you not run the ball? And I know kicking for a field goal, it's overtime. All you needed was 3. You have one of the best kickers in all of football.
It wins the game.
He wins the game.
Yep.
Why are you trying to throw the ball?
Yep. I said the same thing to myself. I said the same exact thing to myself, that, the TV has the little red line, the field goal marker that you need to get to. And I kept saying to myself, they only need about 4 or 5 yards. Why not run it a few times? Now I will say the pass that they threw to Renfrow was a safe pass. It was a short little out route. He tried to make a play and ended up trying to do a little too much, I think, and lost the ball. But yeah, I agree with you. Why not run the ball there? Played a little bit safe. All you need is a field goal. You got a field goal kicker who's got a cannon for a leg. I agree with you 100%. And speaking of Renfrow, real quick, I'm seeing some updates on my phone that he most likely suffered a concussion. So, now his status may be up in the air for week 3.
And again, though, I know what you're saying about a safe pass and our best Hunter Renfrow. We love Hunter Renfrow. It's not, but he did fumble twice. I mean, once because he got hammered. I get it. It happens. But again, why are you safe pass or not? Why are you throwing the ball? Why are you throwing the ball? I mean, they had to get 2 more yards to be in safe field goal range. And I think they could have gotten it where they were from with Carlson there. I mean, I don't think there would have been any problem with him kicking for the game winner. He did it how many times last year? 4?
Many times, yeah.
The decision making, the play call, it goes back to play calling again. But even then, even the pass from Carr that was almost intercepted was a poorly thrown pass. In the second half, he only had a couple passes that were thrown well. So again, everything here is broken. Everything seems to not be working, and it seems to be that they didn't have a game plan for the second half. It's always go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to make this point. I was going to make it earlier.
Yeah.
I've talked about this a lot in my podcast, and I've tweeted about it a lot. Last year, the Raiders won 7 of their 10 games by a combined, by an average of those 7 wins, 3.5 points. We know about all the walk-off wins they had towards the end of the season. That is not a recipe for sustained success. And when you get into these tight ball games, sometimes they don't go your way. And that's what we saw tonight. This is a game that the Raiders win last year. But again, I pointed out, you cannot rely on that. They had an opportunity to put this team away early in the game. They had some opportunities in the second half when they had the ball, couldn't get anything going. They got to finish this team off. It should have never have been that close to begin with. But again, when you play with fire, when you leave it to these overtime situations, things can go wrong. And that's what we saw happen tonight.
Now let's switch to the defensive side of the ball, Evan, because I think we look at, again, a tale of 2 halves. First half, even the folks, Gumbel and Archuleta on CBS were talking about the Raiders pass rush. I mean, Max Crosby was all over the place. He was getting home a little bit. He had 1 sack, I believe, and he was in there quite a bit and just missed a couple others. Chandler Jones, I mean, if he was there, I couldn't notice, right? I mean, now maybe when I watched the film, he did some good things and I just didn't see them, which is totally possible. That happens all the time. But again, that pass rush, everybody was so excited about the 2 edge players. And Max Crosby, for 1 half, was amazing. Second half, I think he probably got a little tired. But again, towards the end of the game, had an opportunity, and there was a penalty on the play, and we don't know if it was thrown before or after. But he had a chance to bring Kyler Murray, couldn't wrap him up. We saw plays throughout the night, especially in the second half, where the defense couldn't wrap up tackles. We saw Jonathan Abram, who does well in the box. That's where he belongs, does great. We saw him get beat 3 times in coverage that I counted. So you saw the defense really in the second half as the Cardinals made adjustments. Mo always talks about adjustments at halftime, right? They made adjustments on both sides of the ball, on defense and offense. They pressed a lot more. The Raiders wide receivers, they completely neutralized Darren Waller for the most part. I mean, they neutralized everybody, especially Derek Carr, because he couldn't get the ball out. But you look at the situation, and the defense was concerning too, because I didn't see, everybody thought Graham was going to blitz a lot more. He didn't again. And so I'm just wondering what's going on there too. What did you see from this defense? I'm confused. I just don't understand what they're doing and what the philosophy is there, because they didn't really do anything in the second half to contain Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I would have liked to have seen maybe some more blitzes. And I know that it's difficult to blitz a running quarterback because you allow him to escape the pocket and then he can make plays. And we saw that happen even when they weren't blitzing. But, I think we're not giving enough credit to Kyler Murray. I mean, he was unbelievable in that second half. I mean, he made some plays that maybe
the
only
2-point conversion.
Yes. Was that the play where they're all kind of mixed together? But when Crosby had him wrapped up, that was okay. Yeah. I mean, there's only maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league that can make that play. And I think he's one of them. So, I mean, it was a combination of things. They couldn't get off the field. They were on the field way too long. They were absolutely gassed. And then you saw a quarterback who played at an elite level in the second half. And that was the difference. And that kind of goes back to my point with when you have these stars that you're paying, 30, 40 million for, they got to show up in these big moments. And their star did. He put that team on his back. He put the team on his back, and he carried them to victory. And nobody from the Raiders did that. And that was the big difference.
Nobody from the Raiders, and how many Raiders got big deals, right? So this is what I was telling people about, because everybody was so happy when all these guys were getting their deals. And again, I don't begrudge anybody for getting what they deserve and what they're worth. Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, all those guys, hey, good. My problem is now, as the Raiders, you've invested in these guys. You just spent all that money. And so far, you're not getting anything on the return. Now, it's 2 games, but it's a terrible start, okay? So you put all that money out there for one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, and we don't see him closing. Now, again, I'm not trying to be overcritical, but I have a commenter on YouTube who said, Raiders 805, when you're up by 20 at halftime, a good defense you don't lose. Now, I agree with him to a certain point, but you also can't have an offense that has 48 yards. You can't. 52 plays to 18 plays. I mean, even the best defenses can't be out there the whole freaking second half. But I get your point, and I get that as well. And then Georgia Patriot, you say when you go into halftime 20-0, you don't adjust to anything. Actually, I'll disagree with you on that, my friend. And again, thanks for viewing and watching and listening. Evan, when you are up big at halftime, your adjustment is on defense, you get aggressive. In my view, you be aggressive. If you look at like the Chiefs or the Rams, now the Rams had a weird game today, but you look at some of these teams who've been there to an AFC, NFC championship or the Super Bowl, those teams, when they have big leads, keep going. They put their foot on the gas defensively and offensively. So that's the adjustment. It's sort of like not really an adjustment per se. It is a continuation of what worked for you to give you that big lead.
Yeah, it's a mindset.
It's a mindset. Absolutely.
Yeah. And McDaniels just didn't have it tonight. And it was a criticism that Gruden got a lot, was being a little bit too passive at times. Yeah. And we saw it happen tonight. As I said earlier, they could have finished them off, and they didn't. For whatever the reason, they kept the game plan simplistic and vanilla, and didn't put the pedal to the metal. And in the first half, I think we saw some complementary football, defense getting, stops, offense putting points on the board, special teams played well. They had some good, Mac Hollins made that play on punt coverage. And in the second half, it was the complete opposite. We didn't see any of that. Offense, 3 and outs, defense on the plays, 10, 11, play drives. And so the complementary football, which we hear so much about all the time from coaches, it was not there.
Well, and you said something, Evan, and I'm seeing a lot of it in our chat, our live chat here for the show, and I want to bring it up because it's important. And that is, you have good players. Okay, you have players in the NFL, in the NBA, Major League Baseball, whatever professional league you're watching. And there's great players. They do well. They do what they're supposed to. They put up numbers, and that's great. And then when you're a championship team, you have players who take a step above that. If you watch the Michael Jordan documentary, you know what I'm talking about. You have guys who take you to that next level, okay? On the Rams, it's an Aaron Donald, okay? It's somebody like that. With the Bengals last year, it was Joe Burrow. Now they're off to a terrible start. I understand that, but they got there. Other teams, we can go through every team and find an example. And so to me, I look at the Raiders, and there's just nobody like that. Now, you could say, well, they haven't had their chance. They've had a chance through 2 weeks this year, and they haven't done it. So who is that guy who's going to step up and do it? Do they have it on the roster? And I just don't know. And I don't think, in my only criticism, and I mean deep criticism, of Derek Carr has always been, I thought he was a very good quarterback, but I didn't see that extra thing. That doesn't mean he can't win a Super Bowl in the right situation. I know you're all laughing at me right now, but it's true. Okay? You look at Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. You look at some of these other guys who've won Super Bowls. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Okay? But what I mean is a guy who's going to take the team on his shoulders like Kyler Murray did tonight. That's the kind of guy you need You need a transcendental player like that, somebody defense off, whoever it is. And I just don't, with all the talent, I just don't see it right now, Evan.
No, I totally agree. And, Carr has been very good in the past in like late game situations, leading, come from behind wins and things like that. But we are just not seeing that right now. And, we've talked about what is the reason. And I don't know if I have a good answer right now, other than the fact that, again, he does not look comfortable. He just doesn't.
Right.
In the first half, yes, he made some nice throws and things like that, but a lot of short dink and dunks, which I thought was an okay game plan to try to attack those linebackers and coverage and whatnot. But I believe he only threw one ball over 20 yards in the first half of the game.
Yeah.
And so, for whatever reason, he just doesn't have it right now.
Yeah. And the pocket awareness seems to have gone backward. It's just messy. It's just really messy. And I think that you look at all this stuff that's going on, and it's just hard to figure out where they go and how they figure it out. And I know what the message will be. And we went on, so I didn't see the post-game press conference. I'll watch it after we're done here. But I'm sure it's like, hey, we got to figure it out. We'll get it together, blah, 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 blah. But it's off to a really bad start. And when you have your quarterback not performing at the level you need him to after getting the contract, after building around him, and somebody said, well, you do have that difference maker, that guy who can take you to the next level, Davante Adams. I disagree. A wide receiver cannot do it. You can have the best wide receiver to ever live. You still got to have the guy that throws him the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, who did Jerry Rice have? Right?
Yep.
He had Joe Montana, and then he had Steve Young. Okay. And I'm talking about his days in the 49ers, of course. So my point is, Davante Adams, amazing. No question. 2 catches tonight. Right?
That's that can't happen. And the offensive line got a lot of the blame last week. Rightfully so. They weren't great. This week, with a rookie playing center, Illuminor left the game for a short time, came back. I can't say that offensive line was a big problem this week. No, I really don't. I thought they did well. I shouldn't say well, but I thought they did well enough. I should say they weren't a liability. They were not the reason. So,
after the mess last week, Evan, they did really well. And
yes.
Dylan Parham at center. Let me tell you, somebody mentioned on Twitter during the game, "Oh, does he replace Andre James?" I don't think so. But, man, the kid can play there, and he played well. Yeah. Did you see any bad snaps? Did you see any miscommunications between him and Carr? No, nothing. So I agree with you.
I mean, the defense, the Cardinals' defensive front and defense overall isn't as talented as the Chargers, but nonetheless, they did what they had to do. And as I've said, the Stars did not do what they had to do. This new, offensive guru, the $40 million quarterback, the $30 million receiver, your new, tight end without the new contract, Renfrow. Those guys got to make plays. It's just, again, I use the word unacceptable. There's no excuses for it. At home with a 20-point lead. Can't happen.
Maybe they need to spend time with the WNBA world champions, the Las Vegas Aces, who won tonight. And by the way, I could care less. No offense to the ladies. They're all talented. And if you like WNBA, God bless you. I could care less. I'm just glad I don't have to see WNBA tweets anymore. But nonetheless, maybe they should spend some time with those ladies.
Why did they put it up against the NFL? I mean,
nobody
I know
watches
the ratings,
it anyway, Evan. Nobody watches it anyway.
I guess that's a good point. But putting it up against NFL Sunday certainly isn't going to help your
I'm going to get in trouble with that one, by the way, because all those WNBA, there's a lot of them in Raider Nation, believe it or not. And I'm sorry. Listen, I spent time traveling with a women's college basketball team when I worked at UNLV in college. My best friend, my best mentor is the all-time winningest women's basketball coach in UNLV history, Jim Bola. Shout out to Coach. I just could care less about the WNBA. So, but maybe they should spend some time. I mean, Kelsey Plum has got that, hey, I'm going to take you to the next level. And I know she's dating Darren Waller, so maybe they should get together and get a locker room meeting between the two teams. Maybe the ladies could teach these guys a few things. Holy moly. But you look at this situation too, and I mean, some of the players, Mac Hollins, great. I don't want to lose track of some of the great performances we saw early in the game because it fell apart in the second half. But Mac Hollins, man, that kid came out fired up tonight, had a great first half. And really, had it continued into the second half, I'd be sitting here talking a lot about him maybe as the player of the game on the offense because I think he's kind of solidified himself as that third wide receiver.
Yeah, he played well tonight. I believe he led the team in targets as well as receptions and yardage. Showed up on special teams, and that's where he excels. Yeah, he played well. I hope that continues, but I hope to see some of their stars get more involved and well. And Scott, I don't want to change the subject, but I'm looking at it right now. 0-2 start. You're already 2 games behind the Chiefs, and you look at the schedule here for the Raiders. The next 3 games on the road at Tennessee. Back home against Denver. Now, Denver hasn't looked great either. And then on the road in Kansas City. That's not easy. And so, you're already looking at 0-2. I thought we were going to learn a lot about this team in the first 5 games of the year. Not off to a great start right now, and 3 tough games ahead. So I wonder, when do you start to hear the fan base start to panic a little bit?
Now? Already saying right it in the chat, my friend.
I haven't been on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter right now, and I'm not in the chat. So I'm just kind of, I'm sure it's begun, but it could get worse.
You bring up a great point, and that is that the situation, they go to Tennessee next week. Listen, I picked them to beat the Cardinals and then beat the Titans. Okay? So I thought they would be 3-0, actually. I thought they beat the Chargers too. Mo and I split on that when we did our preseason picks. But you look at this situation, they're going to go there. Denver at home, you would think, oh my gosh. But right now, after what I saw today, how anybody, I don't care how optimistic a fan, and we're trying to bring in some good here too, because there were some good performances tonight early on. And I'll get to another one that excited me as well. But you can't look at these last 2 games and think they can win a game at all. Like you can't, if you can't play 4 quarters of football, Raider Nation, you can't win squat. So if you're going to tell me they're going to go to Tennessee, beat that, and they're going to come home and beat the Broncos, how? How do you say that? They should have beat the Cardinals. Now, the Broncos were way overrated in my book. So that's a nice game to look towards. But right now, these guys got to play quarter by quarter and win each quarter, because they have not been able to play a complete game at all. And tonight, it just went backwards in so many ways, including the play calling, including the coaching. Overall, was just poor. And a lot of you guys are in the chat saying, this is all in coaching. No, it's not. Yes, part of it is game planning, all that. But players got to play. Players got to finish. Derek Carr threw the ball. Josh McDaniels didn't throw the ball. I don't care what play calls he had. There were passes that were terrible. And that's on him. Or there were assignments missed, and that's not on the coaches. If the plays need to be better, absolutely. And I agree they should. But this is a full team loss. Coaches, staff, players, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, McDaniels didn't fumble the ball in overtime twice, right?
Twice.
I mean, bottom line, yes, coaching needs to be better, I think. But as you have said, players got to perform. They're getting paid a lot of money to do so. And, we saw a guy on the other side getting paid a lot of money do his job. And I can't say enough about his performance. I really do. I know we're talking a lot about what the Raiders didn't do right, but I think Kyler Murray did so much right that, he completely took the game over, and some of those plays is unbelievable what he was able to do in that second half of the game after such a quiet first half from him. Yes. I mean, I saw some people tweeting him like, "Oh, Murray's trash. He's overrated, overpaid." That's why you watch the whole game before you send those tweets out. You don't do that until the game is over. But,
and not only that, but you watch other games and see. I watch being in the Eastern time zone now. I watch morning games, right? I watched the Baltimore game against Miami, which was amazing. Everybody said Tua sucks. Not today, he didn't. He had a pretty good game. He stepped up when he had to and brought his team all the way back to win, setting a Dolphins record for passing. So amazing stuff. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. We're going to come back, and then we're going to talk about a player on defense that I saw that I really was excited about. And then we'll end the show, and we'll get through some more of the comments as they are going absolutely bananas on the various platforms that we're live on right now. So you're listening to Silver and Black today, an Odyssey original podcast. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. Silver and Black today, the post-game edition. Raiders lose a heartbreaker in overtime, 29-23. Evan Grote of Just Pod Baby podcast. You can catch that wherever you get your podcasts, as well as Scott Gulbransen here with you. Mo Moten will be back with me on Tuesday, as he always is, and for the rest of our shows. Our mailbag show will be back Wednesday, and our show will be back Thursday. So we'll get back on our regular schedule Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for reaction, and we'll get his words on that. But Evan, one of the guys I talked about, and I wrote in my weekly column, I do a stock up, stock down on Raiders players. And this week, I picked a couple guys. Nate Hobbs, he did not disappoint. I've had him in there 2 weeks as stocks up. But also Amik Robertson. Here's a guy that I thought was going to get cut. I really thought Amik Robertson was going to get cut. And Mo and I talked about it. And boy, he's really turned it around. He's gotten an opportunity now with the injury that they have there. And so he came in tonight, and I thought played well. He had one touchdown, that Hollywood Brown reception for a touchdown, which is one of the best catches I have ever seen. He still had good coverage on him, but I think the play of Amik Robertson should be encouraging for Raider Nation. I know everybody just wants to bitch about the loss tonight, and I don't blame you, and I'm not going to stop you. But there were some gems within this disaster tonight, and I thought Amik Robertson was one of them.
Yeah, he was a bright spot in this game. And you mentioned the touchdown that Hollywood Brown had. Unbelievable play. But like you said, Amik Robertson was right there. I have to go back and watch it, but I think maybe if he'd gotten his head turned around a little sooner, he probably would have made the play. But yeah, first career interception from him. And I don't have the number of snaps that he played, but I believe this was the most playing time that he's ever had. And, I think he held up well. So that is a bright spot. Maybe he's earned the trust of the coaching staff, and maybe we'll see a little bit more of him. But yeah, definitely a good performance from Amik Robertson, a guy, as you mentioned, who many of us thought maybe won't make the roster. He really hasn't. This was like his coming out game, I thought, where he really was able to kind of, leave his mark on the game and leave people walking away saying positive things about him like we are here tonight.
Yeah, he had the interception, which was great, and really came at the right time. Played it so well, too. It was in his own defense, and he popped over and kind of spied. He played Kyler Murray. He was watching him and anticipating what he was going to do, and then had the opportunity to do that. So that was fantastic. But on the negative side of things, Evan, we talked about the edge already. Again, year number 5 in a row, we have not seen any push up the middle consistently for this Raiders defensive front. Jonathan Hankins, these guys are all good players. They're just not good enough. They're not getting pressure. Kyler Murray could sit in the pocket all day if he wanted to. And then when he did have to rush out of the pocket, he did lots of damage. Not having Perryman, who was out with an injury, obviously hurt the Raiders linebacking core. No question there. And so you look at that situation up front, that's another issue they still haven't solved. Like you said, the offensive line, I thought played well enough tonight, but that defensive line all the way through completely underperformed.
Yeah, it was top 2 concerns for me going into the season: offensive line, obviously, and interior part of the defense from a pass rush perspective. And it's not there. It is just not there. I wasn't real high on a lot of the guys they brought in. They're more run players, bigger bodies. I know Mo has talked a lot about it. Patrick Graham likes his defensive linemen upward of 300 plus pounds. Those guys aren't going to offer a whole lot from a pass rush perspective. So it's definitely not showing up. And when you got Chandler Jones, who really isn't, leaving his mark on these games, you're left with Max Crosby having to carry the load all by himself. And that's not going to be enough. So I don't know if Patrick Graham needs to start dialing up a little bit more, some more blitzes. I know he doesn't blitz a high percentage of the time when I looked at the numbers from his time with the Giants. So I'm not sure if that's something he's going to start to do more of, but at this point, they're not generating much in the pass rush, and they need to start doing so.
Yeah, no, there's no question. You're going to have to do it, especially in their division. We always talk about that on this show, and it's true. I mean, you look at what the Chargers, they lost, and yes, Herbert was hurt, and I know everybody out there hates Herbert and doesn't think he's that good. The reality is their defense has played well for the most part. We saw what happened against the Chiefs. The Chiefs, everybody thought they would take a step back because of Tyreek Hill, who had a big day in Miami today, by the way. But overall, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, so it looks like between the Raiders and the Broncos, right now it's a race to the bottom on who is the team that's going to falter the most and perhaps be out of the AFC West race probably in the first 5 or 6 weeks. As you mentioned, the Raiders in Tennessee next week, at home against Denver, and then they go to Kansas City before their early season bye. And boy, you got to start winning games here, Evan. This Tennessee game on the road, this is going to be a gut check time. It's a hard game to go win, even though the Titans have kind of taken a step back. We'll see how they do tomorrow night. But if they go on the road and they open up 0-3, then I think you're really looking at some issues. That's when the stuff in the locker room starts to go on, and you start to see guys lose hope, even though it's only the 3 games into the season. Statistically, the odds are just so far against you.
Yeah, you start out 0-3. If they lose next week, start out 0-3. Denver and Kansas City, 2 division matchups, which are not going to be easy games. I don't care how poorly Denver's playing right now; it's a division matchup, and you're gonna, you're gonna start finding yourself looking up at both the Chiefs and say what you want about the Chargers. I know they kind of blew that game the other night. They're going to be a darn good team. I'm assuming Herbert will be back sooner rather than later if he does miss any time. But you don't want to find yourself falling too far back too early, having to make up all that ground towards the end of the season. It's going to be a tough task, especially with this division and the quarterbacks that are in this division.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, we have a poll running right now on YouTube to go along with the show. A poll asks, what's your confidence in Derek Carr? Answers are totally confident, somewhat confident, he'll be fine, and I'm done, he's done. Right now, 67% of those voted have said they're done. Wow. That's shocking because our audience is not like heavy anti-Derek Carr. In fact, I think they're probably a little more the other way. 22% somewhat confident and 9%, so under 10%, totally confident in Derek Carr after the first 2 weeks of the season. So 70% are not happy with the quarterback. And he's not the only problem. I want to focus on that and just say that right up front. But in the NFL, if your quarterback play is not good, you will not win. You just don't. And I think we're seeing part of that is certainly playing into this. And that, to me, the focus is not just on the player and his ability, Evan. To me, going into this week, what I'm going to give a lot of thought to and watch as I watch the All-22 film and all that stuff for Tuesday's show is that relationship between him and Josh McDaniels. Is that what is really happening here? Because I'm seeing Derek Carr do things that he's done, that he's been criticized, like pocket presence and all that, which is fair. That's not new. But what I'm seeing is new things with him that I haven't seen before. And the only thing that's changed, right, is, yes, the system, although the system he's talked all about and loved it and said it's not very hard to learn. He's picked it up pretty quickly. But it's that relationship between play caller and quarterback and head coach and quarterback. And right now, maybe it's a good relationship personally, but professionally, it's not working so far.
Yeah, and I was talking about this on my show this week as to one of the reasons why I wasn't as predicting a 12-win season for the Raiders is because of all the new changes going on, new offensive philosophy, new defensive philosophy, a lot of new faces. And I just thought it was going to take time to mesh. I didn't think it was going to come out and be this sloppy, I guess you could say, or unpolished this early on. But this is part of the reason why I felt this team might only win, 9 or 10 games. I mean, a lot of people thought, oh, they won 10 games last year. They got Davante Adams. They got Chandler Jones. They got a better coach. They're going to win 12 games. Well, sometimes this stuff takes time to come together. And that's what we're seeing. This offense is clearly not together. I heard McDaniel say last week in his press conference, we hope to be playing our best football at the end of the season. Well, that's true. But if you get off to such a slow start in the beginning of the season, it may be too late. It may not be enough. Right. So they got to start making some improvements now because, again, you don't want to find yourself looking up at those other teams in the division. It's going to be very, very challenging.
Correct. And listen, I use the statistics only just to show, and again, there's always the one outlier, right? But again, since the league went to 14-team playoff format, no team that started 0-2 has ever made the playoffs. So that's the hole you're in. Now, maybe they'll be the first one. Great. But I'm telling you that if they don't get to Kansas City at 500, they're in trouble. And because they're playing the Titans on the road, always tough to play on the road, and then they're playing the Broncos at home. And you thought tonight the Cardinals at home with that terrible defense, and everybody thought Derek Carr was going to light it up with Davante Adams, all that. The Titans have a better defense. The Broncos, you could argue, have a better defense, although they haven't played that well this year. But at the same time, you can't go. You can play your best games of the season, like you said, your best football of the season, Evan. But if you go into the best part of the season at 4-8, Who cares?
Right.
Who cares
It's
if you're
too
playing
late.
your best football? This league is about winning, Josh McDaniels. It's not about how you finish if you're 4-8 going into the stretch of the season. By the way, the 6-game stretch they have later in the season is brutal. So you better be playing your best football. That's why it was so important to win as many games as you could up front. The Charger game, you can understand. I really could. On the road, first night, whatever. This game, there's no excuse. There's just no excuse for it.
Yeah, and also, a little different when you're in New England and have Bill Belichick as your head coach and the GOAT Tom Brady as your quarterback. If you start out 0-2, 0-3, have a little bit of a rough patch to begin the season, you got Tom Brady there to kind of help steady that ship a little bit. Tom Brady's not walking through the door, obviously. And I'm not trying to compare Carr to Brady or anything like that.
You.
But I mean, obviously different levels of players there. So just totally different situations there. But they got to turn it around now. I said it at the beginning of the show. We're going to find out a lot about this team in the first 5 games and the first 2 games so far. I wasn't expecting it. I got to admit, I am very surprised how poorly the offense has played. I thought this was an easy lock to be a top 5 offense. And clearly we're just not seeing that happen on the field right now.
Not seeing it, and I actually lost money on them tonight because I had them. I parlayed them. You ready for this? I parlayed them with the Cowboys. The Cowboys were 10-point underdogs of the Bengals,
and they won,
terrible
right?
and weak. Yeah, and so or 7 points. Sorry. So I took the Cowboys and the Raiders on a little 2-teamer.
Spread, right? Raiders were favored by 5.
5.5. Yes. Yeah. So that hurt me too. Financially, but it doesn't hurt me as much as it doesn't hurt me as much as it hurts fans. So my small bet on a wager doesn't matter. But Evan, we'll see how this week goes and what happens and kind of what we hear from the Raiders. But I don't really care what I hear from the Raiders. It's got to be what they do on the field. The talking and all this crap is done. You have to either perform or you don't perform. So for me, listening to press conferences, we're not going to bring comments from the press conference to you on the show. I just don't think there's value. I don't criticize other people for doing it. I'm just not going to do it because until the Raiders start playing on the field 4 quarters and put together a whole game, I don't really care what they say.
Yeah, you're probably not going to get a whole lot anyways.
Yeah.
McDaniels has been pretty tight-lipped. He kept his comments pretty generic, but yeah, I agree. I mean, nobody wants to hear the talk anymore. Okay. This was supposed to be the season where it came together. You got the stars, you paid the stars, you got the coach, everything was in place, and they're off to an 0-2 start. So until things start to change, the fan base is going to continue to criticize, I guess, and until things start to get better. And rightfully so, because the product on the field just hasn't been good enough on both sides of the ball.
Yes. And that's going to bring our live instant reaction post-game show to an end here on Silver and Black today. And I'm going to go have a bourbon because after watching that game, it's just like crazy. And I don't know what you guys are going to do to deal with it, but go check it out. And first of all, before we let you go, Evan, tell everybody about your podcast, where they can find Just Pod Baby.
Yeah, so I'm now part of the team over at Silver and Black Pride. So if you want to find Just Pod Baby, you have to search Silver and Black Pride. I'm a part of the network there with several other podcasts as well. So if you subscribe there, you're going to get my podcast twice a week. I do a recap show, which will be coming out tomorrow, and then I put out a preview show Thursdays as well. So yeah, please check it out, and you can follow me on Twitter as well. I'm always speaking my mind on there as well.
He does. He'll tell you what he thinks at egroat5, by the way. Check him out, and you can also follow at Just Pod Baby. Evan, thanks, man. We'll talk to you real soon.
Anytime. Thanks, Scott.
All right, Raider Nation. Sorry, your Sunday was ruined by what was one of the most disastrous collapses I've seen in covering the Raiders over the last 5 years. But again, there's always next week. What we will do is we're going to watch this film. Mo and I will be back on Tuesday for our regularly scheduled show, which you can also subscribe to. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast. We are an Odyssey original podcast, Silver and Black today, so find it there. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you do me a favor. Just hit subscription and hit notifications so you know when we go live. We would appreciate that very much. And we will talk to you on Tuesday. We'll also do our mailbag. It'll be back on Wednesday. If you want to send us mail, send us your reaction, your comments, your questions for Wednesday's mailbag. Since you got it right there on the tip of your tongue right now after this loss, mail us. Please don't curse too much at me. Mail us at mail, M-A-I-L, at Silver and Black Today. So Silver and Black, all spelled out, silverandblacktoday.com. Mail at silverandblacktoday.com. If you are read on the air, we'll give you a free sticker, and we pick one winner each week to get a free Silver and Black Today show t-shirt. Again, mail at silverandblacktoday.com. All right, for Evan Grote, for Murf from Raiders Fan Radio, make sure you follow him on YouTube as well. I am Scott Gulbransen. This has been the Silver and Black Today post-game edition for Week 2. Raider Nation, be good to one another. Take care, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.